Welcome everyone to the Freestyle Cooking Workshop. We'll begin shortly. I'm just going to give people another minute to get online. Welcome everyone. We're going to get started. I want to thank you for joining our Freestyle Cooking Workshop. This workshop will be recorded so that it's available for you to view later, as well as for anyone unable to attend today. After the workshop, we'll email you a set of handouts with the information covered today, including Laura's recipes. So this workshop is a team effort. Let me take a minute to introduce you to the team. Chef Laura Stec is a chef, educator, and author specializing in events and products for healthy people and the planet. Stephanie Lau is our Zero Waste coordinator. She'll be facilitating our Q&A today. Eric Vidal is our Zero Waste program assistant. He's managing all the behind the scenes operations to make today's workshop possible. And I'm Wendy Hediger. I'm going to give you a brief overview of why Zero Waste is hosting a cooking workshop in the first place, and then I'll hand it over to Chef Laura Stec. If you have any questions, please feel free to enter them in the Q&A box throughout the presentation. We'll try to answer them as we go along. But first, let's talk about the term food waste. Food waste does not include items that are traditionally not eaten, such as banana peels, apple cores, and eggshells. We call these items food scraps. We want you to compost these items whenever possible, such as in a backyard compost pile or in your green compost cart. And before you do that, as Chef Laura will show you in a few minutes, make some stock out of them. But food waste is not these food scraps. It's the good food that doesn't get eaten. It's the whole banana, the whole egg, and the whole apple, right? It's that moldy bit of cheese, the limp celery, the bruised fruit, and that mushy science experiment in the back of the refrigerator. You're not sure what that was, right? It's good food that didn't get eaten and went bad. And that's what we're talking about when we use the term food waste. So food waste occurs throughout the supply chain, but 43% occurs in our homes. So that means we have the ability to make a huge impact in reducing food waste. Here's a list of the top items in Palo Alto's residential garbage. Edible food waste tops the list. It's the single largest material type in our garbage. When food waste goes to the landfill, it breaks down into methane, which is a potent greenhouse gas, about 25 times more powerful than carbon dioxide at warming the earth on a 100-year time scale. It's 80 times more powerful over 20 years. But simply putting our food waste into the compost is not the solution. An enormous amount of resources and energy go into growing, processing, transporting, and eventually disposing of all that wasted food. That includes greenhouse gas emissions at every stage of the food system, plus water, fertilizer, packaging, labor, and more. When it comes to mitigating climate change, Project Drawdown ranks reducing food waste as the third most impactful action. For context, electric vehicles rank 26th. Because of its significance in both reducing waste and greenhouse gas emissions, food waste reduction is an initiative in both the city's 2018 Zero Waste Plan as well as our 2020 Sustainability and Climate Action Plan. Reducing the amount of food waste we create can significantly help us reach our zero waste and climate protection goals. So we have a poll for you. Here are some common situations that may lead to not eating the food that you purchased. What situations occur in your household in a typical week? Please click all that apply. And we'll give you a few more seconds and then we'll share the findings with the group. So Eric, if you can let us know how we're doing. Have most people responded?
We're still waiting on a few. I'll give them a few more seconds.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so it looks like that vegetables goes bad mostly for our group, and then fruits, and then leftovers. So for some context, let me share the next slide. So here are the findings from a similar survey conducted in 2019. The exact same question was asked of Santa Clara County residents, many of whom were from Palo Alto. They found that vegetables went bad most often, followed by leftovers and fruit. So very similar to what we found in our group. Okay, with that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and hand it over to Chef Laura.
Hello, Palo Alto. Chef Laura in the house up here in Portola Valley. Welcome to Kitchen TV, where we like to stir things up. We've got an ambitious class today for you today, so we'll just get started. You know, it's an interesting topic, food waste. And I think with COVID, we have an opportunity to work on one of the largest contributors to food waste in our households that we probably have never thought of before because we just didn't have the time. And that has to do with what happens in the refrigerator and planning. So, you know, I live alone and I don't have an issue of well, I do, you know, where did I put something, right? But the more people in your household, the more you have to get in agreement that there's one area in the refrigerator that we're going to put things that need to be used up. And that'll give you an ability just to be able to be more in control of the refrigerator. And I know it must be a crazy experience to have, you know, 4, 5, 6 people living in the same household and trying to work on the refrigerator. So the city of Palo Alto has come up with a good option for you. And that is the Eat First box. The Eat First box. I think you can get this little handout on the refrigerator. I actually just put a cardboard box, and oh, what do I have in my Eat First box? Well, I've got some coconut milk, some vegan cream cheese, and some ricotta. This is dairy that I use for different recipes, and you know, what am I ever going to use any of this stuff for? So maybe I can use it today, hey? And then I have, oh gosh, I have the standard tomato sauce paste right in the can. And actually I covered it, which is with one of these beeswax coverings, these replacement to plastic film. I encourage you to look at these. You can buy them at Whole Foods, I know now, and maybe even Trader Joe's actually, and they just work to eliminate that plastic film. So maybe I can use that later too. And then I just have some various vegetables. I made a galette for a class earlier this week. I've got the roasted butternut squash, and I've got some just pieces of vegetables left over from classes I taught, right? So maybe we're going to use all those later, and we'll put that off to the side for now. Another thing that the city of Palo Alto does, if you're a new resident and you don't have one yet, you can contact them. It's just a compost box. So we all want to, and the things that we obviously are not going to be putting into other dishes, certainly we want to move those into the green waste. And of course, the whole key to eating food with flavor, which no matter what kind of food you're cooking, healthful food or not healthful food, right? The idea is flavor. And so much of what we throw away still has flavor in it. And that's what we want to harness. Before we just give it away, let's take as much flavor as we can out of it. And we're going to talk about how to do that later. Okay, a couple other things. Herbs. Herbs are one of those things I happen to, got a lot of, don't use them all. And there's a couple things you can do. You can freeze herbs. Actually, let me show you how. You can freeze herbs in I'll take the overhead shot, in a ice cube tray. You can freeze them in oil. So this is an oil frozen herb. You can freeze them in water, right? A water frozen herb. And then actually that tomato paste in the can, you can freeze that too in an ice cube tray. And we can use all these later for our freestyle saute. Put those back in the freezer. What else do we have? Mushrooms are sometimes a question. What do we do with mushrooms? Mushrooms, and some people say green beans, will give off moisture that if stored in a plastic bag will just make it go bad faster. So I've got my mushrooms, overhead shot please. I've got my mushrooms in just a Acme paper bag. If you don't like that paper bag, any kind of a paper bag or even a cloth bag will help with the storage of things that get moldy if you cover them in plastic. Now on the opposite side, we've got, and we'll take, oh, hey, by the way, I just wanted to give a little plug here for Cool Cuisine. I used to live in Palo Alto, and we wrote this book when I worked for Actera. And Cool Cuisine talks about the connection between food and the environment, and some of our ideas from class today come from the book. Some of the things that actually do well in plastic are greens. But the problem with greens is that the longer they sit, the duller they get. So anything that you buy in a salad bag, or if you buy the vegetables from farmer's market and it just sits around for a while, we need to refresh those greens. We want to give them a water bath, and it could be greens, or it could be, I actually have some Brussels sprouts that need a little bit of livening. I cut them up a couple days ago, never used them. So whether it's greens or whether it's vegetable, if I just put it in a bowl and cover it with water and let it sit for about 5 minutes, what's happening is interesting. When a vegetable ages, it loses moisture to the air. And if I give it a water bath, then the cells will start to absorb that water back in, and they plump up, right? And then they just become more refreshed and real. So please take this option to heart. This is something we need to do often with vegetables if they're getting too old. And what I encourage you to do is get a salad spinner that then you can just, drain the vegetables quickly, pour out the water, and spin it. And just FYI, there are different sizes of salad spinners. I know a lot of people don't have them because I've cooked in your kitchens for years. A salad spinner is a great holiday gift. And if it's a size factor, like the ones you've seen are too large, this is a small one. So you can buy them in different sizes, and then it makes it more convenient to just be able to use it instead of trying to find it when you need it. Onions, potatoes, these guys need some help. Basically, they don't want to be, so I'll take the overhead shot, they don't want to be stored with other things, right? So potatoes, onions, you can store them together, but put them somewhere under in a dark, cool space, not in the refrigerator. If they're not cut open, they do much better. Tomatoes as well, by not refrigerating them, but by keeping them in a dark, cool space. We also want to look at how we store things in our refrigerator, because I really encourage you this year to go out and get clear containers. So this guy is an old container of mine. I can't even tell you what's in there, right? It's just a plastic container, Tupperware. But this one is clear glass. And that's what we're looking for. We want to be able to see what is in our containers. And so to, ask for different sizes of glass containers. Not only are they we can see them better, glass actually stores food better than plastic does. You'll have better results in the end.
Hey, Laura, we have a question for you.
Yeah.
Freezing herbs, do you need to cover them?
Say it again.
When you freeze herbs, he showed the frozen herbs, do you need to cover them?
Well, I freeze it and then transfer it to either a plastic, Tupperware, or something that you can then protect it from freezer burn. And of course, the freezer is a whole different story. Another story. We don't have time to talk about the details of a freezer today. But remember that freezers and refrigerators, food only is good for so long. The idea of our food is to try to eat it fresh. If we can't, we want to cool it down fast, which is what this little tip is. If you make stuffing like I did this week for a Thanksgiving class, right? The idea is I don't want to just put it in this container at the end, because I want the heat to come out, obviously, of my leftover. But then sometimes people put things away in a container before they're actually cool. And I just want to show you the difference, right? It's better for me to at least pour it in this container first and let it steam steam out in the refrigerator, uncovered. And then if I want to move it into a smaller one, better. But when you have something stored in here, the heat may be cool on the top, but the heat may be stuck in the center. So that causes a problem, one, with bacteria that we don't want in our food for food safety, but also the more bacteria that forms, the shorter your leftovers will last. So make sure before you cover them that they're cool, and make sure you give your leftovers the opportunity to cool with a larger Tupperware first, or a sheet pan. All right, I think we're ready for the second poll.
All right, so our second poll is, why do you throw away food? You buy more than you need, you forget what's in your refrigerator, they spoil faster than you can eat them. And while we're waiting, Laura, you have any tips on keeping potatoes and onions in the pantry from sprouting? We had a question. I keep potatoes and onions in a pantry, they grow. How to prevent them from growing?
Well, I would say eat them. Really, unless it's either cooler, right? Put it in a cooler pantry. Put it in the basement. The idea would be to cool down the temperature and then use it. And of course, then it depends on where are you buying that produce. I would say buy it from a farmer's market, because the foods you get from the farmer's market will last 10 times longer than the foods you get from the grocery store most often. So make sure that you're buying fresh in the beginning.
And okay, so we have the results of the poll. So fresh foods spoil faster than I can eat them. That's the number one. And then I buy more than I end up needing, and I forgot what was in my refrigerator, are tied there. Oh, I don't worry about food waste because I compost my extra food. Okay. Very good.
So this class will help you, right? One of the biggest reasons why people throw away food, they say in the food waste literature, is because we go to those big box stores and we buy those things in bulk. Don't buy more than you need. It's not worth it for you to have, spices in those big containers that last for 3 years, and you should only really have your spices for 6 months to a year, right? So think about what you definitely don't buy. The allure of the big box stores often leads us to throwing away more things than we need. Okay, fruit. Fruit was one of the issues on the survey that we had, and I just want to introduce you to some beautiful fruit water. So I'm really into fruit water these days with seasonal fruit that I either get from my neighbor's trees that nobody wants to eat, right? Or I have a little piece of something, right? My kid, I don't have children, but you do, and they ate, half the pear or something. And what do I do with the rest of it? Well, one thing is you can pop it into some fruit water, just plain water. Add your herbs, rosemary's lovely, add the persimmons, pomegranates of the season, whatever. Let it sit overnight and then drink that instead of soda water. We all know instead of soda, we all know we have to stop drinking soda, pop, Coke. We don't need the sugar. And often a little bit of seasoned water is an excellent way to distract our brain, to make ourselves realize we may not really need a snack. All we need is a taste. We need to turn our brain on to something that distracts us from what we're doing. And oftentimes we end up snacking not because we're hungry, but because we're bored. And fruit water can save the day on that. Another good thing to do with leftover fruit, half-eaten banana, is just keep your smoothie plastic thing in your freezer, right? With all those fruits and bits of bananas and whatever, and throw those into a smoothie. And that's a perfect thing to use up leftover fruit. And also we want to do the same thing with stock. We want to use up some of the products that we naturally throw away. And so here's a couple of them. All right, this is more into the food waste and not the food scrap, but one of the most beautiful things to use up is the bottom of the cauliflower. Now, I actually taught this class a couple days ago, so we pulled the whole thing off, but I still have a little bit left. These leaves, these stems, make sure they're clean, make sure there's no dirt in them, but then just add them to your soup stock pot. You may add them to the freezer stock pot first, and then when it comes time, when you've got it full, you can either use water, or if you're lazy, you can buy store-bought stock in one of those aseptic containers, and then just pour it into a pot like I did here, and then add whatever fruit stock or whatever vegetable stock you have. So you'll see I've got carrot peels. I'll take the overhead shot. I've got carrot peels in here. I actually have some leftover cabbage. The outside that I didn't use. We've got onion skins, all kind of things in there. I'm going to add in some Parmesan rind, perfect to add, right? The back of the Parmesan, add that into your stock. And then even though it's not corn season, I still want to talk about corn cobs because I know a lot of people with kids are using corn. After you cut your corn off of its cob, off of the stalk, or off the corn cob, especially when the corn is in season, this part of the corn is filled with what they call milk. Take the back of your knife and pull that out. Now, it's not in season, so we're not going to see as much as we usually do. But that stuff's fantastic to go into your stock pot, as well as the cob. As long as the cob, as well as the cob itself. And then whether I have plain water or pre-made stock, I'll just put this on the stove for about 20 minutes on a low simmer. And then you can let it sit as long as you want. And I actually often let it sit overnight just on the stove to get as much flavor, because again, the things that we're often throwing away, not only are they just adding greenhouse gases, we're throwing away flavor. And flavor is what you're looking for when you're in the kitchen. No matter what food you're eating, flavor is it.
Laura, we have another question. It went back to food storage options. But have you heard anything? So mason jars are a low-cost food storage option. But is it okay to use the metal lid? So I haven't heard anything negative, and you usually store food in mason jars. So have you heard anything?
Right, it was funny. I was just thinking about that today, because one of the recipes we'll do, or we'll show at the end of the class, is our pickles, which is a perfect thing to make from leftover vegetables that you're not going to use. The packet you have is a very simple recipe. Everything in a pot, 5 ingredients, just bring it to a boil, let it cool, cut up your leftover vegetables and put them in a jar. Now, why was I thinking about the top? because when I added my vegetables to the jar, I didn't have enough liquid to cover all of my vegetables. So I was actually thinking, well, I could use one of these lids, right? But the problem is that these are made from aluminum, and I don't want to put acid and aluminum together. So so I ended up using, to weigh down the vegetables, glass. But that's a very good thing. Don't put anything that might react to it. So that would be things like tomatoes, acids, vinegars, wines, and I would actually, now of course the cover has a different thing. It has some kind of coating on it, and I can't talk about that, but still stay away from acids in relationship to that question, and keep the food lower if you certainly feel any issue. But again, there's some kind of break here from the aluminum. All right. So we're going to do a freestyle saute today. This is a concept that really has a lot of different tentacles. So we're going to try to bring it all together for you. And I don't care. It's like whatever you have in your refrigerator. So when you see the recipe, you'll see for the protein, you've got all kinds of options. You might have chicken in your refrigerator, fish, you might have beef, you might have tofu. Today, I happen to have some tempeh that I want to use up. And tempeh, of course, is made from soybeans. I'll take the overhead shot, just like tofu, except it is a less processed protein, vegetable protein. And if it has a little bit black on it, that's a natural thing. So you don't have to cut that off. That's actually natural. And what I did with my tempeh, and you might use chicken, or again, it doesn't matter what the protein is. What I did is I marinated it in an interesting marinade of pickle juice, the leftover juice from the pickles, combined with some Worcestershire sauce. So pickle juice, olive juice, even mozzarella water. These can be used in marinades. So don't throw them away. They're good with flavor. Just find one that you like. And I just let it soak overnight. Soak since this morning, the tempeh. Now, if you are going to marinate what you have, then after you take it out of the marinade, make sure that you just dry it off with a cloth so that you have a better chance to have your breading stick. Now we're going to look at breading. So we're going to bread this tempeh, this chicken, this beef, pork, whatever you have. I'm going to bread it. The reason why I'm breading it is because even though we're freestyle sauteing, the goal is to make something older just feel new. So breading is a very simple way to make your protein kind of come alive. And you can do it, it's very simple. You can take, and your recipes will have it, the rescued crumbs. You can take those old crackers that you haven't, you had a party and 5 crackers are left, just put them in a Cuisinart. You've got some oats you want to use up, some bread, same thing in a Cuisinart. I call it rescued crumbs. Here I just happen to have some almond flour in my freezer that I want to use up. It's also good. So many options. And then I'm going to season it with a few spices, right? I've got oregano here. I'm coming to the end of the jar. Maybe that's all I want to use is oregano, right? Basil. I've got some thyme, right? Whatever you want. Maybe you have coriander and cumin. Maybe somebody gave you a big jar of cumin and you're just wanting to use it up. So it doesn't matter. Of course, we know it will change the flavor, but you use accordingly what you want. A little salt, a little pepper. And then I have 2 options for you. The easiest option is just to take the protein of choice and put it right into your crumbs, your rescued crumbs. If you want to be a little bit more, take a little bit more time and be a little bit more successful, take whatever flour you need to use up. A little flour first. Dip it in egg next. So the flour the flour allows the egg to stick to itself. The egg then allows more crumbs to stick to themselves. So either way, you can prep your protein. Let me clean my hands.
Now Laura, we have another question coming in. So tempeh is often not gluten-free. Are there any equivalent options that you would recommend?
What isn't usually gluten-free?
Tempeh is not often gluten-free, so is there any other alternatives that you would recommend?
You keep going out. What?
Tempeh is often not
Tempeh.
gluten-free. Yes.
Tempeh. You're saying
Yes.
tempeh. Tempeh. Oh yeah. Well, again, this is what I had in my refrigerator. You may not. Tempeh is tempeh, and you know, it is soy, and it is inoculated with a koji that makes that makes it ferment in a sense. I have heard that thing about tempeh, and I'm not sure how people are processing it. But you know, I don't know if there's a tempeh that says gluten-free or not. You'd have to find that out on your own. This one it does not, but it doesn't mean it's not. Just look around and see. And if tempeh is not your thing, then again, any protein, it doesn't matter. This is freestyle saute. Whatever you got in your kitchen is what you're going to use. I happen to have tempeh today, so I got some tempeh. All right. So we're going to take our not nonstick skillet, and I'm going to add in some high heat oil to it because I want to get a sear going on. So I've got some avocado oil that I'm going to throw in my pan and heat it up, and we're going to give a little browning to that tempeh. If you have raw meat, I encourage you, as the recipe says, to either pound it thin or to slice it thin. This just gives you a faster way to be able to cook your protein if it's raw meat in a quicker fashion, and also not have to worry if it's done or not, right? All right, clean this up. You know, one of my teachers in macrobiotics used to tell us that the vegetables don't want to share the cutting board space with other vegetables. They want their own space. So just like a clean desk, we have a clean cutting board is a good thing to have. All right, we're going to put that tempeh into, or chicken or tofu or whatever, into that oil, that hot oil. Could get a little hotter, and it will. And then we're just going to start giving that a sear while we move on to our vegetables.
And I just want to say that one of our attendees said that tofurkey makes a great gluten-free tempeh.
Ah, there we go. There we go. Okay, I'm looking for my vegetables, and here they are in my pot. Okay. Now, again, it doesn't matter what kind of vegetables you have. What I want to remind you, if you've ever taken a class from me before or introduce you to today, is the idea that vegetables have secrets. Vegetables have secrets. And the secret of vegetables is vegetables are sweet. And you say vegetables are sweet. I don't know about that, right? This onion is not sweet. But if I cut this onion up and start to saute it, what will happen? The onion becomes darker, it becomes sweeter, it becomes caramelized. Caramelization is a process that happens with onions, but it also happens with all vegetables because all vegetables have carbohydrates, which means all vegetables can caramelize if they reach a certain temperature. And that temperature is 330 degrees Fahrenheit or 166-ish Celsius. So what temperature does water boil at? Most people don't remember. We could have that on a poll. Water boils at 212 Fahrenheit or 100 C, but secrets come out at 330 Fahrenheit, 166-ish C. So where do I get that? In the kitchen. Grill, broiler, oven, saute. Today, we're going to take whatever vegetables I have in my refrigerator, and I am going to caramelize them to give them flavor before I even season them. I'm going to pull some of those vegetables out and do a side door seasoning, and the rest we'll finish with our pan saute. All right, let's start with an onion. Because onion and garlic in a freestyle saute just lend us flavor right from the get-go. I hope that you like onion. If you don't have onion, you can use leeks, or you can use chives, or you can use green onion, right? But we get an immediate flavor kick from the allium and from the garlic. And that's what we're aiming to do. All right, before we go into our onion, let's just look at our saute. We'll take the overhead shot. Okay, so let's see how these guys are doing. Oh, nice crust. Now again, tempeh you could eat straight out of the package if you wanted to. I'm gonna add a little bit of salt on top of it right now. But we're adding a little crust because it gives it a new life. All right. Okay, let's talk about how we cut an onion. A lot of times we end up not using onion because we just, I don't know, if you ever seen the videos of people cutting onions, they're pretty funny. Anyways, and if we touch our onion more, the more we touch it, the more the acids fly up in the air and leave it, and then I can't see it, I don't want to cook anymore, right? So touch your onion less by this process. I'm going to cut off the bottom and the top of the onion. These two things aren't really very good for stock. I mean, this stuff wouldn't be, but this stuff is. So you could put it in your stock pot or in your soup scrap pot. I'll cut the onion in half, and I'll peel off the skin, which I will put in my stock pot, which I don't see where it is, somewhere. This I will put in my stock pot. I'm going to take the part of the onion that is connected to the plant. It's that little yellow part, and put that in back. Take my knife and slice through the onion, not all the way through, about 3/4 of the way through, leaving a part in the back to keep the onion together. I can add as many slices as I want to, remembering that the more the slice, the smaller the dice. Now I'll take the knife the opposite way, cutting through, not all the way through, about 3/4 of the way through, leaving me a checkerboard. Now all I need to do is cut straight down. And when I get to the point where I did not chop, I flip that down and I cut the around into julienne, and I cut the julienne into a dice going around that little knob, which I then put in my compost. Okay, let's look at our tempeh. I think our tempeh is good. We're going to move it on to the next level. But what I want to do first, because this is a one-pan saute, is all that brown flour is not part of my sauce. I just want to pick that up. Just take something and pick all that up and remove it. You can even put this into your compost now, right? Now I'm going to take some extra virgin olive oil. With a smoke point of 375 to 425, I can saute with it. It's the unfiltered oil. I'm not going to add all that. It's the unfiltered olive oil, or the very green olive oil, that I don't want to saute with, because those extra particles, those extra phytochemicals and antioxidants in the unfiltered, very floury green olive oil that we get at the farmer's market often will lower the smoke point. So a regular standard extra virgin, yes. Unfiltered, no. To saute. And I'm going to add in my vegetables. So what do I have? I actually have these pieces of vegetables. Now the thing about getting a good caramelization is the place where the secret comes out is the place where the vegetable touches the pan. So if I tried to caramelize this carrot, the outside would caramelize, but the inside would steam. So that's why when you cut things on the bias, you lend more surface area to the saute. All right, I'm starting to get some of that brown stuff on the bottom of the pan. We're going to talk about that. And I would let it go a little bit longer, but because we have a short class today, I'm just going to add in my additional vegetables and put that back on the heat. Okay. And while that's happening, we're going to start thinking about our sauce. So with our food scrap stock, or any kind of stock, I'm just going to take about a cup out of it to make my sauce with. Now, certainly what we want to do is strain this, but I'm just using this as, you know, take the whole thing out and strain it. Don't do what I do. Do what I tell you to do. And to that, I'm going to go into my refrigerator and I'm going to look at the recipe and I'm going to say, what of these ingredients do I have for my sauce? Things that might need to be used up that we, you know, at the bottom of the jar, the bottom of the barbecue sauce, the bottom of the salsa, the leftover coconut milk that I put into a jar so that it would store better, the vegan cream cheese, the whole milk ricotta. Now the recipe would tell you to add to 1 cup of stock, add 1/3 of a cup of one of these additional kind of sauce makers. But when I was practicing with it, I just wanted to make sure that they would all, you know, go well, or I actually introduced the ricotta, and it turns out it makes this delicious creamy coconut tomato sauce that we're going to make. So all that, oh, and the tomato paste, which we'll find in a second. All right, so let's look at our vegetables. Our vegetables are doing very good. We've got good caramelization starting. But more important, we have this stuff on the bottom of the pan. This stuff, this brown stuff, is called fond, F-O-N-D. And as we're talking about flavor, do not get rid of it. You want to move that brown stuff into your food by the process of deglazing. Now, I can deglaze with wine or stock, but think about those extra things. Think about that olive juice that you have. Think about that old beer that you didn't finish in the refrigerator. Think about apple juice if you're cooking for kids. You can deglaze with anything. The key is don't add so much that you drop your temperature to 212. I only want to add where the fond is. And with a flat wooden spoon. Why flat? Because it'll pick this stuff up. A round spoon won't work as well. With a flat wooden spoon, I'll pick all that up. And that already is seasoned without being seasoned, right? Now, if I want to, I can go vegetables with side door seasoning. I can remove some of these vegetables for my saute, but say I want to season up these vegetables. I don't have too many left. The vegetables with side door seasoning is a very simple recipe where you take, again, a lot of those seasonings that are on your side door that you just need to use. You have a list of about, I don't know, 10 on the handout. But here's one of my favorite, especially for the season. And it is Dijon mustard and mayonnaise. Oh, excuse me, Dijon mustard and maple syrup. Now, there are no quantities on their side door seasoning combinations. I want you to think of everything as just equal parts. Think equal parts maple syrup and Dijon until I make it once and I say to myself, equal parts makes it too sweet. So I want more Dijon than maple syrup. So it's all you can do whatever you want with it, right? But these side door seasonings are salt and pepper with a college education. There are things that go together quickly that once I caramelize my vegetable and I deglaze my pan, then I add right at the end. Let's do it. So again, I don't have a lot of vegetables left because we use some of them for, but we're just gonna add a little bit of, to the pan. I can add salt. I don't have to add salt, and I'll just mix them in. And then I'll remove and get that ready for dinner, put it off to the side. And now I have this beautiful pan with a lot of good fond still in it. Give me the overhead shot. I'm gonna pour that sauce in, or my food scrap stock. You'll notice a part of my food scrap stock has some wispy things here. That's some sea vegetables I had actually that I wanted to use up. Perfect for a stock. Oh, and what I want to do with this, and I would be doing this on the stove, but we're going to do it under the camera, is I'm going to go into those sauce ingredients. And again, I would add a third of a cup of any of these, but just to show you that if I decide I want to add the vegan cream cheese in with the cow's milk ricotta, because I just want to use it all up, the heat will allow me to create a new sauce out of those leftovers. Again, maybe I don't want creamy. Maybe I'll add that barbecue sauce that I have at the bottom of my jar. Maybe I'll just add some mustard. I've got some crusty mustard. Maybe I'll even try to add a little bit of hummus. I've got that last bit of hummus. You can mix that in too, right? You can combine. You can use one by itself. And the object is to just give you a little bit extra flavoring in your food scrap stock. We'll let that come up to temperature. Oh yeah, and I have my beautiful squash that I'm going to add into my vegetables because it's already cooked and it looks so good, and I would have done that in the pan, right? But I'll leave that there. Okay, so we have our protein, we have our vegetables. We took them out of the pan so that we can focus on the stock. Once the stock comes up and starts to combine with itself, then we're going to look at it and say, oh, you know what else I wanted to add was that tomato sauce, tomato paste. I could add one of those frozen ones that I showed you earlier, or I can just, if I still have some in my can. That's one of the things I throw away a lot is tomato paste. We'll take the overhead shot. And so again, what I have here is a coconut tomato cream sauce, just using, literally, these were the things that were in my refrigerator. When I planned this class, I didn't know what I was going to have in my refrigerator, because I just wanted to, and I started to play with that. And then I added them all together, and I thought, hey, that works out pretty well. Let that come out. So the last thing about a sauce is we need to think about, does it need to be thickened? And I teach a sauce class, and we go all the different ways that you can thicken. But for this class, it's just going to be an easy cornstarch. And then we're going to add some of our food scrap stock that is cool, right? Not hot, because if we added it hot, it would seize. So cool stock into our cornstarch to make a slurry. This was what we will thicken our sauce with. You might want to thicken it with arrowroot. You can thicken it with kudzu. You can thicken it with flour, however you choose. And then we'll just add that to our sauce. Let's see what we put it back on the heat. Next time you come to class, I'll have a camera over the stove, but I didn't have it yet. So add as much as little as you want. I think when I add the heat to it, it's going to thicken a little bit more, because cornstarch is fascinating. The way it thickens, I was like, how does cornstarch thicken? The way that the cornstarch thickens is, it's amazing actually. It's science, but it's so basic. When you add water to cornstarch, the molecule absorbs 30% of its weight in water, and then it sinks to the bottom, which is why you need to stir it again before you add it because it all sunk down. Then when you add heat, the molecule adds much more of its weight in water, and then the I'll take the, yeah, I think it's a good thickness. And then the molecules are so big, they're like linebackers, and that they just prevent the water from getting by. And the reason why a sauce thickens with cornstarch is because the cornstarch molecules are just not letting the water pass as fast as it would. I think it's fascinating. I think cooking is fascinating. All right. Okay, so what do we got now? We have our sauce, we've got our protein. You know, so now technically what we could do is take the next part of your meal. If we're going to have a protein and we're going to have a vegetable, we also want some kind of a starch, carbohydrate, pasta, grain, polenta, potato for a real meal. And it just so happens you can use any of those. I have some whole grain here that I am using up today. Now I could add that whole grain right to my sauce, but I want this at the end to be prettier. So whatever your, whatever, if you may only have protein and vegetable, but you may have more, you may have pasta left over from yesterday, whatever, it doesn't matter. You could add it directly to the sauce we just made, or you can microwave it and leave it on the side. Now let's taste our sauce, because of course cooking is all about taste. And you'll notice that there is a little, it's not a perfect mixture, but it's a creamy tomato sauce. It's fantastic. I love the combination of the coconut with the ricotta, and then the vegan cream cheese. I would have never done it. A little bit of salt and a little bit of pepper. And then, of course, in correct plating way, let's see, do I want a bigger spoon? Well, let me see, do I got a better spoon? Maybe I'll use this spoon. So we could put the sauce down first, right, if you wanted to, but just for time factor, I'm going to actually put my sauce on my grain, my pasta, whatever it is. I could have mixed it all together in one pan and just plopped it down on the plate, but I want to do more of a presentation for you. Let the sauce, you want to see the sauce. So if you didn't put it underneath, just kind of put it onto the side, right? People want to see the sauce. And then we'll take our vegetables. Oh, we'll take our easy seasoned or our side door seasoning, maple syrup and Dijon. We'll just add those off to the side there so that we exemplify that idea of an easy seasoned vegetable. I'll take my tempeh and I'll just cut it into some creative shapes that allow for presentation. Now remember, when you're plating something, that the eye is attracted to uneven numbers. So always try to add things in 3s or 5s instead of 2s and 4s, because when you add things in 2s and 4s, your eye's going this way and this way and this way. But if you add things in 3s, your eye will go this way, this way, this way, this way, right? So it's more sexy, they say. That's what they say. Oh, I didn't add my vegetables first down here. So, of course, I have vegetables on the side, but I can also, if I didn't want to do the easy seasoning, then I'll just add my side door seasoning. I'll just add my vegetables there. So we have double vegetables. We have our uneven amounts of tempeh. And then to finish up, we have, again, our pickles that we made. And this is such an easy recipe, just 5 ingredients in a pot, let it cool, and then pour it into a jar. So we're going to add some of our pickles. And then we're going to add 2 other additional things that we like to add when we're doing more plant forward or really cooking in general. We want to add a flavor accent And you've got a bunch listed. And here's a new one, coconut sriracha, which I think is fascinating. And then I also have on the recipe a crunch, because variation causes us to eat more. And that's so important. I'm going to turn around and say it again. Variation causes us to eat more. The junk food industry knows this. That's why there are 15 flavors of Doritos. And if we can get variation in flavor, as well as texture, as well as sizes of cuts on the plate, our brain will be turned on and we get this joy and satisfaction out of our food. So a crunch, here you go. I've got different crunches here, but this is a good one. Trader Joe's Everyday Bagel Seasoning gives you that crunch, gives you a little additional whatever. And then there is one last thing that we put onto our plate of interesting vegetables, which is my nut herb seasoning. And this is, I don't know if you're about meat, if you eat less plants, if you're eating less animal products, you may be incorporating more fats into your diet, and definitely nuts. If you have issues with nuts, try seeds. But I often have a lot of just like different kinds of nuts. Here I've got some pumpkin seeds in there, some almonds, just all kind of different things. And then whatever herbs you have in your refrigerator. So I've got all kinds of things because I've been teaching all week. I've got cilantro, I've got chives, I have sage, right? I think I even have some spinach down there. And then I'm just going to put it into the Cuisinart. So it doesn't matter what the herb is, right? It doesn't matter. I've got some marjoram. I have a lot of herbs today. And I even have some leftover spinach. And I'm going to whirl that up. Oops. I thought I was going to whirl that up. Hold on. I'm going to whirl that up. No. Here we go. No, I'm going to whirl that up. Maybe something in here. We'll try again. Oh, there we go. So this is like a pesto, but with whatever herb and whatever nut you have. I'll finish it up with a little bit of olive oil. Mix that up. And then, of course, you can season that however you want. Garlic, salt, pepper, or nothing at all. And what that lends us is not only the ability to use up our herbs, which we often just have, but it gives us flavor and it gives us crunch. It gives us a flavor accent and it gives us crunch. And again, in a plant-forward world, which is really, plants are much more my interest. Meat is not my enemy, but it is not my muse. And when we go more with plants, we need to have all these additional little seasonings so that you can turn your taste buds on. And what I want to do with that is just heighten that a little bit, because the other thing that our eye likes is height. So if you give a little bit of height, your eye will be more attracted as well. Freestyle saute, quick pickles, side door seasoning, and nut herb chutney. That's a class, Palo Alto. I'd love to take some questions if there are any.
Oh, so first I'd like to just say that this concludes the workshop for today, and Chef Laura has graciously agreed to stay on for a few more minutes to answer questions, so we can definitely take more questions. But before we do that, I want to thank you all for attending. Hopefully you've learned some tips and tricks in general for cooking, but also to help you reduce food waste in your home. This is truly one place where we can make a significant impact in reducing waste and greenhouse gas emissions. Please keep an eye out for the handouts that Laura mentioned from today's workshop. We will be emailing them to you soon, so you'll have those. Hopefully after class I'll work on sending them out. So thank you, and let's see if we have any questions. We had a question about sending the recording, and once we have that done, we're going to put it on our website, and I can send out something to attendees and with a link once we have that available. So should you store, Laura, should you store tomato paste in a can or transfer it to another container?
You know, I would definitely transfer it. And again, if you came late, I just think these are such a cool thing. You know, anything in a can and aluminum has that chance of having the aluminum flavor go into the food. In the early days of natural foods cooking, we used to talk about how that the aluminum would make you crazy, you know, whatever. Forget about that. I don't have the science for that, but I do have the science for the fact that the aluminum flavor goes into the food, and there's nothing attractive about that. So whether you store it in something like this, you know, these little containers, and then you freeze these in a smaller thing, right? What's great about the ice cube tray is that you can freeze like the amounts that you need. So again, this is, you know, herbs and oil, and this one was herbs and water. And then you can just add these directly into your sauce, right? And let it melt in, and then you have a flavor agent right there. So definitely remove things from anything to do with aluminum. And your best bet is to store stuff in glass. Again, I don't know why, but I think food just likes glass better than it likes Tupperware plastic. And it does seem like it stores, I don't know if it stores longer, I don't have the science for that, but the flavor stays more true to what it was instead of kind of turning. And I think probably, actually I'm thinking about this, the science now, you know, the plastic still could move air back and forth from it, where the glass would be more solid. So you're not going to have the influence of other flavors and things in the refrigerator, and so storing in glass is really your better bet.
Okay, another question we have is, can you do the deglazing in a cast iron pan?
Ah, very good, very good. So technically in the saute, you know, it's better to sear your protein in a cast iron skillet because you'll get a better a sear. Now, a cast iron skillet is technically a non-stick skillet. You can cook eggs in a cast iron skillet, for instance. The reason why we want to use a stick skillet is because we want that fond. That fond and the deglazing process of it is one of the keys I hope you walk away from this workshop with. Now, you can do the whole thing in a cast iron skillet, or you could do it, you know, the searing in the cast iron and the other skillet. If you do it in 2 skillets, you'll have 2 skillets to clean up. If you do it in 2 skillets, you'll have better searing on the protein, though, and better fond development. But if all you want to use is a cast iron skillet, you go right ahead and deglaze that cast iron skillet. I do it. I don't have it with me here. I have a small cast iron skillet that is always on my stove. And often, if I'm just lazy, I will do exactly that. You won't have as much of the fond that will attach to it, but you'll still have something, and definitely use it.
Great. So we have another question. Doesn't brassica go funky in a long cooking vegetable stock?
Oh, interesting. Okay, so yeah. So cruciferous vegetables are often not recommended when we make a stock because of the bitter flavor that they lend, or the funkiness. So that would include things like broccoli, Brussels sprouts, kale, collards, those types of things. Now, cabbage, and not the red cabbage, but the white cabbage, you know, the lighter cabbage is an interesting, it's kind of the outlier in that group of cruciferous. And I don't know how to say it. Is it cruciferous? Is it cruciferous? I never remember how to say it. So I hope you're not laughing at me, but I think I always say it wrong. But cabbage is an interesting thing because cabbage doesn't, and maybe because it doesn't have the dark green, which is the chlorophyll, right? Cabbage in macrobiotics, we would use cabbage, carrots, and I forget what the last one was. And we would make a morning tea out of it. So we would steep the vegetables and actually drink it as a tea because that light green cabbage doesn't add the same kind of, it actually lends a sweetness. Now, would I just have cabbage stock? I think that might be overkill. But cabbage does offer a different experience to stock than its brethren and sister in broccoli, cauliflower, or not cauliflower. Cauliflower is good because it's sweet. Kale, collards, Brussels, those kind of things.
Okay, so to freeze in an ice cube tray, do you cover the tray? Otherwise, won't the food absorb smells from the freezer?
Well, you know, I was actually just in Molly Stone's yesterday, and they had an ice cube tray that was covered. And I thought that was interesting because I was thinking about these guys. If you're going to freeze it overnight and then pop it into something new, I don't think I would worry about it. Depends on your freezer. If you got a funky freezer, maybe you're going to need to do something different. But I wouldn't leave it in this. If I was going to leave it in this, I would absolutely have a cover. And I don't even know if that would be as effective because, you know, of the freezer burn and that kind of thing. So I think a smaller, tighter, some type of either, you know, freezer bag or Tupperware to transfer these things in is the better bet.
What type of skillet did you use today, Laura?
I used all-clad, and I'm gonna actually, let me show you something that doesn't have, actually I showed with the soup pot. I use all-clad LTD. So all the chefs, when I was a young person, I always paid attention to what my chef friends had in their kitchens. And everybody, it seems like 80% of people had all-clad. All-clad being, I'll take the overhead shot. All-clad being just, you know, good stainless steel, aluminum heavy pot. Unlike Kelphalon, which was the other trendy option when I was a young chef buying all my stuff. But I was also I used to work in Crate and Barrel. I'm going to get something else down from there. And when I worked in Crate and Barrel, we found that the one reason why people buy all-clad was because of the shiny, you know, the shiny metal, right? But the thing is that once you start using your pans, that shininess is going to get covered with oil, most likely, unless you're like my mother, who who cleans the outside of a pan. So what I invested in, I'm very glad as a young chef, I invested in this it's called LTD. LTD it you know, has a coating on it so that you don't see the shininess, true, but I don't see all the oil, you know, I mean, these pans are like 25, 30 years old and look pretty good. I don't clean the sides. So what I would say is use the pan that you like to use. And if you only have old pans and non-stick skillets with all the lines in them, you know, we don't like to use things that we don't like. So if you have a bunch of old pans and you just don't like them, you know, that's one of the things that's keeping you from cooking. So invest in some good quality cookware. You know, that's a whole other story as to what pieces you may want, but make sure that you have something that you like to use. If you don't like using it, you're not going to use it.
So we do have a question. Can I save appropriate leftover vegetables for stock in the freezer?
Yeah, actually, and of course we had that. Let me see if I can find my little stock thing. I usually have, you know, just something in the freezer, any kind, and I just put my little pieces, my carrot peels and all that crap. And again, I may make stock or I may just want to liven up the store-bought stock. But either way, you're going to end up with more flavor. And flavor is what you are looking for. I don't care if you're eating healthfully, you know, and everyone's going to like genuflect because you're so good at it. If your food doesn't have flavor, you're missing the point. So healthy food, whatever, you know, has to have flavor. And all that stuff that we throw away in that 40% that goes into the waste, man, that is not only greenhouse gases, that is flavor. So definitely keep it in the freezer. Once you get, you know, once you fill your container, turn it into stock.
So we have another question. I'm not good with cooking. I'm not good cooking with non-stick pans. Do I need to add more oil when cooking with the all-clad pan?
No, non-stick, of course, means things won't stick. If you have well, now the thing about the deglazing the pan is you want a good quality pan. If the one pan you invest in is a 10 or 12-inch saute pan from All-Clad or somewhere else, the value is there because a high quality, not non-stick pan will release. And if your pan is not releasing, when you, again, the font on the bottom shouldn't be black. We're not looking for burnt. We're looking for dehydrated, basically. The reason why that has flavor is because as you saute, your vegetables or whatever lose a layer of skin to the pan. And that's the stuff that we want to get browned, but we don't want to turn black. And then the quality of your pan will allow you with, again, don't use a round spoon. Why not a round spoon? Because you don't have the surface area. You need a flat spoon to do that with and a high quality pan. And if you have that, it will release.
So those are all the questions we had. Which is really great. We did have one person make the comment, which I think is good to give a plug out to everyone, is that when replacing your stove, all of us, we should think about induction cooking, right? Induction stoves, because that also helps save greenhouse gases. And I know, Laura, when you did your live cooking workshops, you had your induction burner, so it doesn't really change your cooking much, does it?
Well, no, I don't know who said that, and I may know you. And I agree, and you're right. However, we all get a couple things in life that we get to take advantage of. I live in a very small place. I don't have kids. I drive an electric vehicle. The one thing I still want is a gas stove. It's a whole other story as to why, and I'd be happy to get in that conversation. But culinarily, the thing that we're attracted to, if the best meal I ever had was cooked on a fire. I still remember on a bike tour I did, because fire, and this comes from macrobiotics, fire gives us this energy. Not only just do we cook the food, but somehow it seems to impart something in the food that we just it's just, you can't compare. So microwaving kind of in macrobiotics will give us this kind of energy, and fire will give us this kind of energy. And I can't have fire in my kitchen, so I love the gas, and I have more control of it than an induction. Of course, the more I use my induction, the more control I have of it, because I get to know what it is. All that said, that's one of the things I get in this life. I get a gas stove because I don't have a lot. I don't have a big house. I don't have a big car, and I don't have any kids. But it is true that induction is one of the ways that you can help in this reduction of greenhouse gas emissions. And I think we all need to think about the ways that we can contribute to that effort, and be clear as to what you choose,
All right. Well, thank you so much. I want to thank everyone for attending. And I think this concludes our workshop. So just keep an eye out for the handouts. I'll be sending them out soon.
Thanks, Palo Alto. Great to be back home again. Take care.